Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the VUU this Thursday, October 8th, 2020. I am the Reverend Dr. Michael Tino from the lead ministry team at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and coming to you from Peekskill, New York, where it is a bright, sunny, breezy fall day. It could not be more beautiful. It could not be a more beautiful time for me to leave town because I need a break. Let's just be clear. Um, and that's life here in Peekskill, where my child is in school, and I am praying that she's safe. Quiana Perkins, how are you this morning? This afternoon? It's afternoon. It's 12:01 here in the East Coast.
It's afternoon, if you're in this time zone. My name's Quiana. My pronouns are she and her, and I am calling you from Ann Arbor, Michigan, where it is a balmy 63. It is so beautiful and sunny. I'm gonna go for a walk later around, it's called Gallup Park. It's this beautiful little island pond, and I'm gonna torture my children by making them walk as well. So I'm really excited about tormenting people later on today. I'm just excited right now. The energy between you and me and Don is just so titillating and so exciting. So I'm looking forward to this hour. Don, what you got going on Egg Harbor?
Oh, it is a gorgeous, bright, sunshiny day here. The air is cool and crisp. It is that wonderful stuff that just starts to smell like fall. You know, that's if you breathe in and then automatically my sinuses close up. And I'm like, yes, it's October, because there are new allergens in the air. It's a beautiful day here in South Jersey, and I'm excited because we are less than a month from the election, and there is an end in sight. Oh, thank you, baby Jesus. Here we are. It is Thursday. It is awesome. Are we gonna let Tanner introduce himself, or is he going to stay hidden behind the little logo thing there?
I think Tanner likes to stay behind the chalice, but Tanner Linden is behind our chalice today, fielding your comments on YouTube and getting them to us. So please interact with us. We love it, and especially since we are your guests today. So maybe let's start out with the national roundup before we get to the UU stuff, because there was a vice presidential debate last night that I did not watch because I was taking care of my own mental health, which we'll get to in a few moments on the show.
I saw that callback. I saw that tie
there
around.
I'm seeing you. But what I watched was the New York Times fact-checking it in real time. And I watched them pop up like so-and-so said something mostly true. Well, if it was mostly true, it was Kamala Harris. And if it was, this is misleading, this is false, this just ain't right, it was Mike Pence. I don't think they used that. I don't think that was
their scales. That wasn't their scale.
Category, but it was like no, and really, really no. And everything that came out of his mouth was rated at the very best. This is incredibly misleading. To this is blatantly false. And it was all I needed to know not to turn on the TV. Because I'd have been yelling at him, and he might have heard me all the way in Salt Lake City because I'm loud, but I would have woken up my child yelling at Mike Pence on the television. And
I yelled.
Of course you did.
I had it on mute and I yelled.
I also did not. So it was interesting because Mike and I did not watch. And Michael, I'm sorry, I keep saying Mike, I apologize. I did not watch because for my own mental health, but also the commentary is so much funnier than the debate. Like the commentary, the memes, the quotes, all of that is so much more entertaining than the actual debate. And so I wait for those. So this morning I had lots of laughter in my life, lots of laughter on my screen.
Yes,
Oh,
we all enjoyed the memes of Kamala Harris
and
looking
the, and,
at the
I
vice.
liked the
oh,
fly. All the ones about the
oh,
fly have been comical.
oh
The fly.
God.
I was just like,
Before,
oh wow,
before
that's
the
a lot.
before the debate was over, the DNC was marketing fly swatters as a fundraiser.
Yeah. $10. You get you a little fly swatter, and that's when I knew it was a wrap. That's when they started selling fly swatters, I was like, I know who won. I know one went down. Gotcha.
I
But to bring it, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Don.
no, good.
No, I was just gonna say to bring it back around, like our collective watching of things is so interesting because we're collectively watching, for lack of better word, a dumpster fire, right? Like there's a dumpster fire happening around us in all of these different ways. So you had the presidential debate, you had the vice president debate, and all of them to collectively watch is just so. We as a culture, and we were talking about this kind of behind the scenes, this is like collective gaslighting. There is some collective trauma happening. I'm going to throw the mic to Don to speak a little bit to that, but we are collectively experiencing trauma.
Yep.
And we've never experienced it. We don't have a mechanism to process it. So there's a lot going on. Oh, Don, talk about that.
Well, I watched the debate, and I have to tell you, I've told some of you before, I have a standing 9 p.m. phone date with a dear colleague that we started in 2016 during the presidential debates. We wanted to watch, but they were too insane to watch alone. So we would sit on the phone with each other, with me in St. Louis and her in New Hampshire, and we would alternately shout at our TVs. And
Nice.
so we've been doing this. We've been watching the news at 9 o'clock every night since then. And so last night we were watching the debate, and I gave up and muted mine. I put it on closed caption, right, so I wouldn't miss anything particularly. But I was still shouting at the TV because I could hear it on her phone. And I tried to mute my TV twice, because it wouldn't stop making noise, even though it was on her phone. Yeah, it was, for anyone who has grown up with or experienced a family dynamic where somebody regularly tells you that what you know is true is actually false, that was an incredibly triggering event. You know, for any of us who, and I will say one of the things for me personally, my own trauma history, one of the things that'll set me off faster than anything in the world is somebody not listening, or somebody telling me that I don't know what's real. And that's what happened last night. We've got 210,000 dead people in the United States, and this Yutz, that's about as clean as I can get it today, kids. This Yutz was telling us that they have been absolutely at the front line of keeping Americans safe. This he's saying while he's looking for all the world like a vampire with his eye bright red, and what's the fancy word for it? Pink eye. What's the fancy word?
Pink eye.
It's got a
Conjunctivitis.
That's the word. Conjunctivitis.
Go, Dr. Michael. Go, Dr. Michael.
Conjunctivitis is like one of the symptoms that happens with COVID. And he's been like snuggled up next to the toxic mango.
Covita.
Yeah.
Toxic mango. I kind of like that.
You like that?
Aisha Hauser calls him the hate pumpkin.
Hate pumpkin. That's good. That's good. Anyway, but he's been cuddled up with him, who is, in some sort of hormone euphoria psychosis, right?
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And those of us who are of sound mind or sound-ish, who respect science, who understand how to observe behaviors and symptoms and things that are real and in front of us are being told, no, that's not real. No, that's not real. It's incredibly triggering. It's incredibly, you might be able to tell I'm a little wound up about this.
So, but I think that's, go ahead, Michael.
So I want to like bring it home a little bit, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about today, because this is happening on a national level and it's happening to all of us, but it's also happening on a congregational level. It's also happening at an associational level, that we are being told again and again that what we know is true is false, and we are being told again and again that things we know are false are true. Right? It is classic gaslighting. And
can we just name what gaslighting? Can we define
please.
that for somebody in case somebody doesn't know what that is? Do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
Go for it,
Don.
Okay. There was a movie, I want to say in the 1940s or 50s, in which
called Gaslight, right?
Called Gaslight, yeah. In which a husband tries to convince his wife that she's losing her mind by doing stuff that causes the lights to dim in the house. That was back when they had gas lights. And he would do stuff and the lights would dim, and she would say the lights are dimming, and he says, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. And so the term gaslighting has come to mean that telling someone that what they're experiencing as true is actually false. So that's what the term gaslighting means as a verb. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
But to expand on that, because I think it's important, the reason why it's a tool in manipulation is if you can get someone to doubt their reality, you can replace it with whatever you want, right? So if I say to you, the lights in this house are flickering to keep the theme of the movie going, and you say, no, they're not. So now all of a sudden I'm questioning, is this really happening to me? So then when other things happen, I have to use you as a source or some outward source that isn't me to figure out if things are happening. So then I have to start asking, hey, is this real? Is this true? And so you start to doubt your own self, your intuition. So like everything in your body is a muscle. And if you're not using your intuition muscle, it gets weak. If you're not using your internal spidey sense, it gets weak. And so if you are being gaslit and told your reality isn't real and you have to use other people, your ability, I think, Quiana thinks, the ability to protect yourself from harm starts to get diminished because you're using outside sources for things. When we are doing this to each other as a country, we're saying that to most of the people. So the first layer of gaslighting is to tell you your reality isn't real. And then the second part is to replace your reality. So we're at the place where our reality is being put in doubt. And the next phase is going to be to replace that reality with whatever truth those folks want us to have. So know that it is a layered, psychological, manipulative attempt. It is not simply just telling me you doubt something. It's telling me that you doubt my reality so that you can circumvent it somehow. This is step one. So I just want to be clear that we have been in this process for a while. We are going to be in this process for a while. And for those of us who have experienced trauma and have mental health things, or if you are Black in America, this is a lived reality that's been happening for a long time. To live in America as a Black person, as a brown person, is to live in a gaslit world. When I go to the hospital and say I'm experiencing things A, B, and C, which anybody else would be is like, oh, this is heart disease. It's like, well, you're fat and you're Black, so just go home and take some aspirin. That's real, right? Like that's circumventing my reality. So now when you tell me I'm obese because there's no food in my neighborhood, I know that I'm taking care of my body. You just told me there's no food. I'm living in a food desert. I have no access to move my body. And now I have heart disease, even though I told you we could have prevented that. The story hopped around, but you're smart. So I say to you, know that gaslighting is very serious. It's it's a master manipulator tool.
Right. Well,
Sorry.
it is a tool to keep people controlled, right? It is a tool of power that is used. And so when the president and the vice president use it, it is a tool of power to get something by us, right? And when I'm going to bring it real home, when people of color in Unitarian Universalism are told, "Oh, yeah, there's no, we're not racist in this congregation,"
And then
right?
someone else has to touch your hair.
Like let's bring it let's bring it down to like where we are in our congregations. It's a tool. It's an attempt to assert control over people.
It's yes, absolutely.
So how do we resist that, and how do we care for people who are
I think it's about
experiencing?
relationship. I think that you have to get yourself a little tight knit group of folks, however you know them, however they've come into your life, and have a good fact check, source. If I hear something about COVID and I'm not too sure, I don't just go to anybody and say, is this real? I have my 2 or 3 sources, right, where I feel really confident. So I think the trick about gaslighting, if you're not isolated, is to really look to your community and say, where is this real? Where's there evidence of it? I'll make this super personal. I am a person who experienced domestic violence in my lifetime. And gaslighting was one of my abuser's favorite tools. And what helped me stop being, so once I left that situation, I had my mom, my sisters, and a few close friends where I could say, is this real? And I trusted them. We were in relationship and they wanted the best for me and I didn't question that. And they were able to start to bring me back in to build my own muscle around my own intuition. Because you learn that everything's wrong, right? Some of what gaslighting does is like, maybe everything I'm doing isn't right. And you question if anything's right. So, I mean, I could tell you many stories, but I think it's about relationship. I think it's about having consistent relationships and people who look out for you. Because I had people who, when I would just check out of the world because he was isolating me so much, would check back in and be like, no, I refuse. I need to know how you are. So I would say we have to just check in with each other and have some really hard, honest conversations about our mental health. I'm a person who, because I've been gaslit, because I have post-traumatic stress disorder, I check my mental health with other people all the time. I have an accountability partner. I have a therapist. I have a spiritual person whom I speak to. So because I had that trauma, now I build in those layers of relationship and protection. And I just think it's critical. And I know that not everybody can do that. So I'm not saying it's a cure-all for everyone, but I am saying that there's an opportunity in relationship to build some walls around yourself to protect yourself.
Yes, all of that, yes. And it's really hard sometimes to have compassion for people that have been gaslit to the point where they believe the alternative reality, and have them be shouting that stuff. COVID is a myth, or it's a hoax, or that kind of stuff. It's really challenging to care for, minister to, and be in relationship with those folks who seem to have taken leave of their senses.
But to bring it back home, Don, trying to be subtle. I'm not good at subtle. Y'all should know that by now.
Yeah, me either. Go ahead.
This is not the view. This is not the subtle crew. Just say it.
No. Oh no, there's things I should be subtle about.
Yeah, but they tell me hitting is against the rules.
So to bring it back around, to be really clear, when we talk about brick and mortar situations, I had a thought and I was so busy trying to cover it up, I forgot what you were saying, Don. That's the beauty of conversation. I was so listening to you and I had a thought spark, and then it went away because I was like, ooh, listen to Don. Well, just keep talking and we'll see what happens, Don.
Well, I heard
Words you never want to say to me. Go ahead, Michael.
So I heard Dawn saying that it's hard to listen to people who have lost connection with reality by their own choice, and who are trying to gaslight
Or
others.
not. Or not. Who have just been overwhelmed with the gaslighting and have just,
Who have been gaslit into an alternate
exactly.
Well,
reality.
the word that you made me write down was proximity. And so I don't always think folks have bought into the gaslighting. I think that they think that if they're in proximity to the person who's doing the harm, they'll be unharmed. So I feel like there's some folks who are like, if I'm just that much closer to whiteness, if I'm just that much closer to maleness, if I'm just that much closer to economic wealth, that proximity will allow me to be absolved of harm, to not do harm. Just like when folks say, I have that one Black friend, so I couldn't be racist. I have enough money, I have this degree, so I can't be classist. And the reality is proximity does not save you from the thing you think of as harm. Proximity to the folks who are gaslighting and who are trauma bound does not absolve you, and it does not set you free. And so I don't know sometimes if those folks have truly drank the Kool-Aid, as we say, or if they're like, if I'm just close to the pitcher, that's enough. And so sometimes I see very smart people doing and saying things that I feel are so disconnected from what we know to be good and to be humanity. And I think that's their struggle, is how can I not be harmed by this thing? Which is sad in a lot of ways. It's not comforting, but I see it happen. Proximity to power does not give you power.
So our topic today is trauma and care in the time of the pandemic, and we really wanted to talk about how it is that we care for communities of people who are traumatized, who are being re-traumatized daily by what's going on in the world. And Quiana, you point out the fact that that is not a new reality for many of our siblings. There are some folks that are part of our communities who have been traumatized daily for their entire lives. And how it is that we, as religious leaders, I guess, or as religious people, because not everybody tuning into the VUU is a religious leader. How is it that we stand up? Stand up is not, I don't want to use an ableist metaphor to talk about gaslighting. How is it that we resist gaslighting? How is it that we, but really more importantly, how is it that we care for people who are being traumatized? And so, Darby and Janine, don't worry, we're not going to be subtle. Darby and Janine are out there. So how is it that we care for people who are traumatized?
So, go ahead, Don.
Well, my first thought is to start always at the basics and to say your reality is real. Yes, you can believe yourself. Yes, you can trust yourself. Yes, your experience is yours, and nobody gets to tell you what that is. And sometimes we have to say that over and over and over and over and over. So I remember I had a conversation with a person one time who I knew to be in a relationship that was unhealthy. And this was back in seminary. And we had some of the same classes together. And one of the classes we talked about, it was a pastoral care class and trying to identify dysfunctional relationships and abusive relationships. And at one point, this person like tagged me and walked out into the hall. And I went out there with them, and they said, I think I'm being abused. And I said, I think you're right. I think you're right. But then my partner has told me this, and this. I said, and what do you feel? What do you feel? And they said, I don't like this or that or this. I said, okay. And so like, there was only so much I could do before that person got to that realization. If I had said, you are in an abusive relationship, that person would have said, you know, screw you. What do you know about my relationship? Blah, 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 right? But I had to wait for them. And I am so not good at this, just so you know. I am so not good at like laying out the crumbs and hoping that they find their way, and being there to support them when they figure it out. But I remember in the ensuing weeks, there were a handful of us helped move that person out of their house, collect all their stuff, get them to a safe place, and boy, oh boy, it was. Sorry,
Hello?
I hit the button. I'm sorry. So it was, but it was in any, and this is one of the things that complicates working with traumatized people so very much, is that it has to be this weird, fragile dance. Because to say you're in this really unhealthy thing causes somebody to have to say, either I'm participating in this madness or I've been played for a fool.
So that is the question we as individuals have to ask about America. We have been in an abusive relationship for over 400 years.
Yes.
How do we get out of this relationship? How do we systematically, personally, publicly change how we engage each other, engage politics, engage so many things? For Black and Indigenous people, enslaved people, this country has always been, if you want to study if you want to study mental health, study the mental health of Black and Indigenous people who have been on this continent since day one. Like that's where the study is, right? Like, how do we get out of this relationship and survive and thrive? How do we disentangle ourselves from a system that does not value us? How do we get out of a pattern of behavior that has not served us for years, hundreds of years? That is, so when folks, just so that y'all know, because I'm on a little streak here. So when folks talk about defunding the police, they are saying, how do we dismantle a system that is based on harming me? They're not saying they don't want someone to come and, you know, break, I don't know. I don't even know what police do anymore. I try not to look at them unless they're on my screen, and that's a push. So it's like, what we are trying to dismantle systems that fundamentally do not care about us taking a breath of air. And so if it's the police, if it's the government, if it's the, what's that college where there's basically a lopsided number of people, the Electoral College, thank you. We have to dismantle those systems. They were not made for all people. They are not getting us to where we want to be. And we have to own that. We have to, like, and I just want to say, because it's important, I had Tanner place a link to domestic violence, national domestic violence, somewhere in this whole cycle, because to talk about domestic violence, but to not give people resources or support to address any concerns they may have in their personal relationship, to me is a disservice to who we are and what we stand for in this space. So just know that if you do need those resources, they are available, whether it be domestic violence, sexual violence, intimate partner violence. It just got really dark in my house. Please know that there's resources in your local community, in your region, in the nation, in the country. Email me, call me, I will help you however you need to. Just, I need to say that out loud.
And I think that that's part of what we do also, right? Is we can talk about what abusive relationships might look like, and we can talk about what these behaviors are in ways that are not personal, but in which people might start to recognize that they are caught in a relationship like that, right? So, Dawn, your friend probably heard something that made them say, "Oh, like this thing that I'm dealing with is abuse." Right? But if you had said to them, "The thing that you're dealing with is abuse," they would have gone, "Yeah, no."
Yeah, nobody
Right?
could have told me.
So
Nobody could have.
part
Yeah.
of what we're doing on the View is describing what this sounds like, what this behavior feels like, what this behavior does. Um, and if you are out there and you think you have relationships that are doing the things that we are talking about, those resources that Quiana mentioned are your lifeline, and we offer them to you, because it's part of what I do as a minister all the time. Is I think it's part of my job to say, here's a healthy relationship, here's an unhealthy relationship, or here's like the history of policing in the United States and why your police department exists. Do you think that that sounds healthy?
Mm,
Because it ain't, right? It's
right.
just not.
Yeah.
And then people go, oh, like I was convinced all my life that they were folks that I had to respect because they were protecting me. Right? It's like national gaslighting, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, one of the things that I will say sometimes as a pastor is, tell me what an ideal healthy relationship would look like to you.
hmm,
You know, and they teach us this in pastor school. They teach us these sneaky ways to ask, open-ended questions. um, and what might it look like to have a healthy relationship? What do you think it would feel like to be in a relationship where you were affirmed, and that where you were supported, and that where you had your experiences validated?
Mm.
you know and it's fascinating. Some people can get there and say, oh geez. And I've had other people I've talked to who have said, you know what, I hear what you're doing, and I've already looked that way, and if I actually look any further, I'm going to have to acknowledge it, and that's going to upset my entire life, and I'm not ready to do that.
Yep.
And I was just like, you what?
Yep.
But that person, that was stunning to me. And I have to say that in years later now, when I look back at it, I think, oh, this person had children to worry about. Right? And so sometimes people stay in really unhealthy, really traumatic places for the sake of people that they are responsible for their children, for their elderly parents who need care, for a variety of reasons. So,
You hit your button again, Don. I will just.
my headset just tried to transport me somewhere. I'm sorry.
I've been there, except I don't have on a headset. But I wanted to follow up and say, like, we don't. So, in addition to being gaslit and to have all of these things happen externally, we also don't have systems in place to help folks. I said something earlier, Don, and you cracked you were. I would say that although we have a mental health care system, people's ability to engage that system is limited as crap. So, like, I have a partner who in order for them to go to that 1 hour appointment, they have to take off the whole day. Their job doesn't do half days. They work in a call center. Their insurance is crap. So a copay to go to a doctor is $30. So that's $30 just to go to this 1 hour appointment, and they've taken a whole day off work. And so, and it was really hard to find one before COVID because nobody was online. Everybody was like, you have to come to my physical building. So it meant for this person who wanted a African-American therapist, and we live in a not African-American based city, it meant that they couldn't find a therapist who matched their needs. They didn't find anyone who was white they were comfortable with. So there were so many barriers to them accessing their health care that they just didn't. And we have systems in America set up like that, whether it's for therapy, whether it's to check your heart, whether it's to go to the dentist or check your eyes. We've made it so time consuming, so physically stressful, and so financially damning, people don't engage it. And so, yes, we have ways to take care of ourselves, but mental health is really hard in this country to access. Make no mistake, it is not easy. I have a job with health insurance, and it still took me a while. When I caught the bus, there's no way I could have been in therapy. There was no way I could have took the 1.5 or 90-minute round trip bus trip to get to a Black therapist in Ypsilanti. That just wasn't an option, to take a whole day for a 1 hour appointment. And so when we say to folks, take care of yourself, it's like, here's the things you can do. It's like, if I don't have a clean home because I'm physically stressed out, if I can't access the therapist, if I can't, my city or state doesn't do medical marijuana, if all of these things, it's like it's supposed to be so easy, but it really is hard to engage in comprehensive mental health care.
Well, it's designed by, for, and about affluent white people.
Yes.
Right? Who have transportation, who have resources, who have funds, who have jobs that allow them flexibility, who have all that stuff. The system is built by, for, and about the people in it, the people who create it.
And for me, I will just say without any hesitation, I've been made to feel like any ways of engaging my own mental health, not always, let me clarify. In my lifetime, I have been shamed and literally shamed for engaging in therapy from communities of color because we're told we're not supposed, we are so told mental health care isn't for us that when you engage in it, you are shunned in the community in a lot of ways. In a lot of Black communities, Black mental health care is going to see your pastor who might, again, gaslight you when you try to seek out care. Not all, some. There's also these layers around, then if I'm not doing self-care or mental health care that models or looks like colonial things, then it's invalidated. So my sitting on my couch watching TV isn't aligned with that leisurely way of getting mental health, but it's valid for me, but it's not enough. So let me use a better example. I don't go get pedicures. That's not my version of self-care. So then are you really relaxing? And I also get why don't you go take care of your feet and take care of your body? So from both ends of the spectrum, I get this message that getting pedicures and shipping champagne is what white women do to take care of their mental health. And collectively, if I don't do it, I'm shunned from Black community for not having flawless feet, which doesn't make sense to me. As a sidebar, to me, flawless feet are a sign that you're not walking, you're not doing your work. And also, having feet that never made it to the fields isn't something, there's a whole slave thing in there, like slaves who didn't walk, slaves who were in the big house, their feet were not the same as folks who were out in the field, folks who might run. So this pampered, manicured feet thing is a whole other episode for me. But I just need to say to you, what personal care, what care looks like in other communities is so invalidated and so mocked. It's really hard.
Deborah Pope Lance, who Deborah Pope Lance?
No, I'm thirsty.
Okay. Deborah Pope Lance is, I believe, Reverend Dr. Deborah Pope Lance. She's a consultant in working with the UUA and does a lot of, she does sort of the aftercare in situations where congregations are victimized by misconduct, whether it's clergy misconduct or members misconduct or staff misconduct or whatever. But she's the one who she teaches a class for ministers who are serving congregations with a history of misconduct. And trauma presents itself in a bunch of ways systemically. You know, we have to think about the congregation as an organization, as an organism that responds like any other biological organism to input, to pain, to trauma. And one of the things that she always says to ministers and to people who are serving congregations or serving communities that are have a history of abuse is self-care, whatever it looks like for you. If it doesn't feel indulgent, you need to do more of it. Because if you do what you call self-care and it sort of refills your tank and you're good and you're ready to go, that was refilling your tank. That wasn't self-care. That wasn't indulgence. That was just eating your carrots, you know? That was just maintenance. For self-care, it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go, you know, beyond a nutritious meal right into the chocolate truffles and brandy, you know? Or whatever it is that makes you feel indulged. That is the above and beyond. And whatever that looks like for you, if that means sitting down with a half gallon of ice cream, okay, it's probably not the healthiest solution, but you know, there are others that are worse, whatever. You know, if lying on the couch for a day with your feet up, doing absolutely nothing is an indulgent day, then do that. You know, if like for me, an indulgent day means I get to go out in the shop and I get to heat metal really hot and then hammer it. And I come in filthy and sore and exhausted and happy, right? And so for me, that is the indulgence. That is the where I get to go out and create metal art with heat and fire and hammer, and it's awesome. That for me is self-care. And whatever it looks like for you, that's first and foremost. When we say take care of yourself, take care of yourself, whatever it is for you that works, not what this group or that group or some other group tells you it ought to be. And I thank you, Quiana, for that whole thing about the feet. I am going to chew on that for a while. I'm going to have to go think quietly on that one. Wow.
So to chime in, like the whole feet thing, I'm sorry I took it there, but I think a lot about what standards of beauty and standards of disconnection are in place and make me think about slavery sometimes, right? Like, what does it mean to have manicured feet and hands? It means you haven't worked. What is how, like, it's a way to signify your disconnection from labor to me. I don't want baby smooth skin. I mean, I got good skin, I'm black don't crack, but I'm just saying, So but I wanted to bring it back around too about the pandemic in general, and just some observation is that what mental health looks like in my kids before COVID and what it looks like now is different. The things we've had to watch out for and pay attention to are different. What that looks like for my kids, what that looks like for me, what that looks like, I think, for a lot of men in my life has come up. And I don't say that gendered statement lightly. I understand what I'm saying. But I think that we have a culture that has never taught men how to express their experiences of depression. And so I have a lot of friends who are doing things like, I've been in my basement for 4 days playing video games. And although there's a point where that's good, there's a point where it flips from being maintenance, self-care, and into self-harm, right? Or like this unawareness that you're experiencing depression and that's why you've been down here for 4 days. So I think we have to really pay attention to what the layers that are happening. We have our own mental health always going on. Then we had the pandemic of COVID. Then we had the pandemic of racial injustices that happened in the country. then we had this academic like swoosh of like things that we consider to be normal aren't normal anymore. The way that we work isn't normal. And now we're being traumatized by our entire country on an electoral scale. There is this layers and they're going to look different. So just like I didn't always know what self-care and maintenance, thank you for introducing that, Don, look like, I also have to reinvent or re-engage what does harm look like? Because I thought I knew, but now it looks different in the time of pandemic. And so it's been this really, if you're a caregiver or somebody who looks out for other people, I just implore you to open your eyes and look a little bit bigger. When you start to peel back that onion, you're going to get folks who are hurting and showing their hurt and their concern and their anxiety in different ways. My daughter, for example, she's fine around us. If I take her to the store, like she needed clothes, she had to try them on. I can't guess her. She's 12. You don't guess a 12-year-old size at Target. Just, you got to pick your battles. But she got so anxious. She was in tears because there were so many people in the store, and it was so hard to watch her do that because I couldn't protect her and I needed her in the store. So, and she had never done that before. She is not scared of people. This my 3-year-old who would walk up to people and my co-parent would go, yeah, we have a play date on Thursday. Your daughter made a play date for us at the playground. So she's not somebody who was ever afraid of people, and now she is. And so that's a new thing we have to deal with. So I just put that all out there to say, look, watch, pay attention, ask questions. What used to be normal is not normal.
Quiana, do you know Hannah Blank?
Oh, yeah. She's in Ohio.
Yes. She wrote The Remarkably Short History of Heterosexuality, which I think is published by Beacon Press. Okay. She's not a Unitarian Universalist, but she is an academic, and she is a bi and fat activist, and she's brilliant. She's ordered a couple knives for me.
So she has good taste in knives.
She has good taste in knives. She has a flowered-handled cleaver because I thought a femme like her should have a pretty tool for the apocalypse. So anyway, she recently shared on Facebook about a class that she's teaching where one of the students came in and offered a bunch of, as references, a bunch of QAnon stuff, a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff, a bunch of, you can't really trust PhDs because they're just part of this sort of corporate educational academic culture, and it's all, conspiracy stuff. And she shared how, and God bless her, because I don't know that I can do it. She is an incredibly patient person. And she shared how she had a conversation with this student and talked about vetting sources, talking about what we would call exegesis on a piece of literature, where you look at it and you take a look at it and you're like, who wrote it and why and when and what they write it about, right? And you sort of take it apart that way. You always ask who benefits and who hurts. And you talk about the value of clear facts and the value of peer review, where you have other experts in the same field review something to see if it stands up to established science. And she made progress with that student. And I mean, that's the model for how to talk to somebody who's citing these things that have, this culture of gaslighting, this culture of trauma culture, right? Because the trauma is the method and it is the goal.
Yes.
It is the method and the goal.
Yep.
The overwhelm, I remember 4 years ago, we were talking about the overwhelm is the point. It's not the result, it's the method and the goal.
If I'm constantly fighting you over the word worship, I don't have time to be in worship. If I'm constantly fighting you in our congregation over the words like Um, what is some of the other words some of my friends don't always like? Worship is a big one.
Prayer.
God. Which one? What's yours?
Prayer.
Prayer. If I'm constantly
White
fighting you over
supremacy
those
culture.
white supremacy, then I don't have the energy to actually be present in my own worship, to experience my worship. And I've used all of my energy to battle you, so I can't be as present in other parts of my life. It's a technique, it's a skill. The nap ministry, if you don't know about the nap ministry, we deserve rest. And when we are not grinding and we are not being physically, emotionally, spiritually overwhelmed with the task of fighting white supremacy, we have so much more life and energy to give, which is a perfect segue because there's the things that we do to stay healthy, right? So for me, I'm not a bath girl. I don't do that. I'm not a manicure kind of girl. So the things I do are usually community or self. So I'm walking right now. 30 minutes a day is my goal, and I have a tribe of people doing that with me. Shout out to Girl Trek because we're listening to Girl Trek. Find it. It's good for folks whether you're not a Black woman. Everybody else, as long as you are not taking up space from Black women, you're welcome to listen to Girl Trek. Girl Trek, shout out. I am actively engaged in different faith communities, so I take a lot of spiritual energy from UUAA, which is my brick and mortar at home. I take a lot of spiritual energy from Blue. I have several small communities of women that I tap into, but I also participate in Drum, which is UU's, I'm not going to try to tell you what Drum stands for. Michael, do you have any expertise in this one?
It is Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian, Universalist, Multicultural Ministries.
They are having their conference this weekend. I'm very excited. They're giving a lot of space for conversation and dialogue around Black, Brown, Indigenous folks who are a part of this UU situation. And one of the keynotes, or the keynote, is Leslie Mack. And if you've not ever heard Leslie speak, come get your food, come get your meal, bring an empty plate, bring some Tupperware. Leslie's going to cook for us. She's going to give us the whole jam. But also Reverend Quiana is going to speak, and I'm really excited about that because they do a lot of research around Black women and UU and faith, and so that's going to be hot. And Loretta has extended until Sunday. Their lower registration amount is available until Sunday. So if you're about that religious educator life, hit them up. How about you? Does anybody else have any other UU roundup stuff that we want to make sure? These are ways that you can take care of yourself. This is mental, physical, emotional care.
Elandria's memorial.
It is on Saturday at 2:00 Eastern, and it's being held. The Tennessee church, which was her brick and mortar home church, is hosting that.
Tennessee Valley UU.
Thank you.
Yep,
I will bring my own box of tissue. Everybody, it's BYOT. Bring your own tissue.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some tears up in there. So, yep. I actually use paper towel because that's how allergies roll around here. But to come back around, there's many ways and many people, whether it's this community, whether it's the next door neighbor, there's so many opportunities for you to engage with folks who love you and care about you and want the best for you. And so I would say whether you're in trauma, out of trauma, healing from trauma, all of those big words, find people who love you and hold on tight.
I'm going to just offer this, and I'm going to volunteer the two of you. I don't think this is going to be a stretch. That if you don't believe that you have somebody that you know who loves and values you, call one of us. Because I think Michael, I just signed you up for that. You all right with that? Yeah, he said.
If you've got my phone number, then I love and value you.
Right? Or you can find mine on my church website, right? I mean, but give one of us a call, because if you don't believe that you have anybody in your life who loves and values you,
well,
then we will be that person and talk to you.
And let me say, Church of the Larger Fellowship has worship on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tanner will put the link to that on our YouTube page to sign up for that. And we also provide pastoral care to our members and friends. We have a pastoral care team of learning fellows and a chaplain intern working with us this year. and reach out, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible. Information on the CLF website too. My UU roundup was not self-care related. It was the fact that the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, on which I serve, had a meeting last week, and so congratulations to newly fellowshipped ministers in our movement. That it was not self-care; it was meaningful and deep work. It was 6 days on Zoom. Uh,
You don't even get to
it
go
was
to
hard.
Boston for good seafood anymore, huh?
That's right. Someday,
One
someday we will get to go to Boston again, but not anytime
Someday I will
soon.
be in that. So I try not to talk about this, but being with the anyway. One day I think I'll be in that MFC process. Maybe today feels like a strong yes. Yesterday I was like never, but
Well, if it's
You
sometime in
will
the
be
next,
assimilated.
if
Resistance is
it's
futile.
if it's sometime in the next 8 years, I will be glad to recuse myself from your panel, Quiana.
yeah, let's hope so. That's yeah. So
Oh,
y'all, this is I'm glad that we didn't have goals when we started today, but I want to just acknowledge the things that we've been able to accomplish. We've been able to talk about the presidential process. If you have not voted, if you don't have your mail-in ballot, if you're planning to use your last attempt to vote and vote in person, please make sure you are civically engaged in ways that affirm who you are and what you believe. We are a nonpartisan space, but you deserve the right to be affirmed in your political views in whatever way that looks like.
And if you have
We,
been disenfranchised by our system, we acknowledge you too,
yep,
because that's real.
yep. You don't have to vote. That is your choice, and you made a choice, and I honor you. We've also managed to talk about gaslighting and other mental health realities that come with this life, that come with this being in America. We've talked about how mental health and depression look different right now, and then we're closing because we're so badass on about ways that we can engage our community and take care of ourselves in this time. So for folks who had no agenda, I think I feel baller-esque. I am going to show my shirt really fast because I wore it on purpose. It says Revolution, and it's from the Boggs Center, which is based out of Detroit. And if you don't know who Grace Lee Boggs and Jimmy Boggs were, dig in. They were all about relationship, all
Seriously.
about making political and community change on every single level. And it has to start with relationship.
And so next week we have an agenda. We hope you will join us when Nicole Presley and Ashley Horan from UU The Vote come talk with
yay.
us. And Aisha Hauser of our lead ministry team will be back co-hosting next week. And I think I will be then off because we're trying not to have all three of your lead ministry team people here at the same time. And we'll see you next week for UU The Vote. Take good care, everyone.
Take care, folks.